Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Kevin Cleveland. Cleveland was shot and killed on Tuesday, April 4th, 2017 at the intersection of 60th Street and Vermont Avenue in the Vermont-Slauson neighborhood of South LA, according to LA County coroner records. Raven Hall and Sakaya Settles were subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. On December 10, 2016, defendant Settles' uncle, 16-year-old Tyrone Davis, was killed in a suspected gang-related shooting. Davis, known as 50 Bang, was a member of the 5-5 neighborhood Crips. Defendant Settles was a member of the Rolling 50s from the 5-7 subset. He was known as BK7. The Six Deuce Brims, rivals of the Rolling 50s, were believed to be responsible for shooting Davis. In a discussion of Davis's murder on Facebook 2 weeks after the killing, a friend told defendant Settles he should get a gun. Defendant replied on Facebook that he had one. On April 4th, 2017, Cody McCoy, a 5'5", 5'7" Crip gang member known as D5, was shot in the ankle in a drive-by shooting on 56th Street in an area claimed by the 5'5", 5'7" Crips. Surveillance video of the shooting showed a black sedan and a gold Lexus traveling down the street. Defendant Raven Hall, a 19-year-old member of the 112 neighborhood Crips, also associated with the Rolling 50s, was present at the shooting. She testified at trial pursuant to a plea agreement. According to Hall, McCoy and defendant Settles were in the front yard of a house and began making gang signs as a car drove by. Someone in the car started shooting. Hall, who was in her gold Lexus with two other people, followed the car with the shooter. She eventually realized that others were also following the car and decided to return to McCoy's house. Along the way, she picked up Nasha Hughes, a member of the Rolling 30s. The various Rolling O's gangs are aligned with each other. Defendant Settles asked Hall for a ride, and she agreed. At defendant Settles' direction, Hall drove him, Hughes, and McCoy into an area claimed by the Six Deuce Brims. At 60th and Vermont, Nasha Hughes pointed to a girl and asked defendant if he saw her. Defendant Settles looked, then told Hall to pull over. Hall eventually parked in an alley as directed by defendant Settles. Defendant Settles got out and walked toward Vermont. According to Hall, Hughes said the girl she had pointed out had been involved in Davis's death. Hall noticed a man taking out some trash. The man asked Hall for her phone number. Hall gave him her name but not her number. The man walked out of the alley. Hall then heard gunshots. The man returned and said he just did his shit. That expletive just did his shit. Defendant Settles returned and got into the back seat of the car. He put a Glock into the pocket of his hoodie. Hall drove out of the alley. Defendant Settles said he had to because the girl had set up his uncle. He said he was sorry. Hall dropped defendant Settles and McCoy off at McCoy's house and then dropped Hughes off and went home. Surveillance cameras captured a shooting at Vermont and 60th Street around the time Hall heard shots and the man who took out the trash made his observation. The videos of the shooting itself were not good quality and did not provide a clear view of the shooter. The videos did, however, provide a good view of Hall's gold Lexus. Both the videos and the testimony of witnesses and victims established that a group of young people were standing on the corner when an African-American man in a dark hoodie walked up and opened fire on the group. The young people, all or almost all of whom were students at a nearby high school, scattered and ran. The shooter hit victim Cleveland, Harris, and Lafayette. One of the high school students in the group on the corner noticed the shooter as the shooter came out of the alley next to the Alba Snacks and walked toward the group. The man was smiling and had his hands in his pockets. The student testified he recognized the man from Facebook. He testified defendant Settles, as shown in his Facebook profile photograph, looked exactly like the shooter, but also stated that he was not certain it was the same person. According to the student, defendant Settles asked the group where they were from. The student understood defendant was asking for their gang affiliation. One of the shooting victims, Harris, replied she was from Brims. Defendant Settles began firing at the group. People in the group began running. The student ran away. He was running toward an alley when a gray or gold car pulled out. The car was driven by a woman wearing glasses, and there were two other people in the car. The student believed the person in the front seat was a shooter. The car sped off. The student saw victim Cleveland trying to walk, but he couldn't because of his injuries. The victim appeared to be in pain and was yelling for someone to call his mother. The victim was alive when paramedics took him away in an ambulance, but died later from one of the 3 gunshot wounds he sustained. Kiera Harris and Damon Lafayette, who were in the group of young people standing at the corner, were also wounded by the shooter and taken to the hospital. Both survived. Lafayette recalled the man in a gray hoodie approaching the group and asking a question. Harris replied. The man began shooting at the group. Lafayette ran inside a nearby donut shop, realized he had been shot in the leg, and called his mother. He could not identify defendant Settles as the shooter at trial. Harris testified that a man in a gray hoodie asked her where she was from. She stated she kept walking and did not reply. The man kept repeating the question. Harris did not remember telling police that someone said Westside Brims. Harris heard shots and began to run. She realized she had been shot in the shoulder and eventually sat down on the curb. On August 27, 2019, defendant Raven Hall entered into a plea agreement with the people, whereby she agreed to plead no contest to second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter, admit street gang allegations as to both counts, and testify truthfully at co-defendant Sakaya Settles' trial. In exchange, the people agreed to a sentence of 21 years in state prison and dismissal of the murder charge. Following the trial, the jury convicted 16-year-old defendant Sakaya Settles of first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. The jury found true the gun and gang allegations. The court sentenced defendant Settles to 144 years to life in prison. Kevin Cleveland was 17 years old at the time of death.